Hi, welcome to week 2. It's fantastic to see you. Hopefully most of you know who I am. My name's Mandy Kenny. I'm based at the La Trobe Rural Health School in Bendigo. But of course we have students studying all over the place, so where I'm based is really irrelevant. I'm here to help you. So what I wanted to do was start off at week 2 and just talk to you a few things about how the subject works and give you a couple of bits of information about why we do the things that we do, what you need to do, and what I'll do. So I want to start with student evaluation. And so last year, of course, the subject was evaluated. The unfortunate thing about student evaluation is we only get such a very small number of students who actually fill out the evaluation questionnaire at the end of the semester. My son, who's a third-year university student, reassures me and says that he only fills it out if he really hates it, that if the subject's okay, he ignores it. So that hopefully makes me feel a little bit better. But I take feedback really important. I think it's really important and I take it seriously. So I want to talk about a couple of things that I've done from the feedback last semester and why I've done them, because you might wonder. So one of the bits of feedback, and these again are from very tiny numbers of students, was that they found that the sheer volume of material on the LMS, they found it a little bit overwhelming when they started. Took them a little bit to get used to PebblePad, and that that they lacked a bit of confidence when they started. Now I thought about that, and I thought one of the things that I think I could do is really reinforce really strongly the need in week 1 to get confident with using PebblePad. And so what I did was, rather than giving you the whole subject material up front, which is what I've done in the past, I made the decision to actually just release it slowly. And so you will see that I released week 1 first, and fantastically we've got about 100 students studying this semester, and that's pretty standard. We normally have about 100 to 120 each semester, but I've noticed that about 60 of you have actually completed that, which is totally fantastic. I've had emails from people already, and I hear this every year we run this subject: I'm not very good at computers. Well, yep, I understand that, but the reality is, as graduates of a university, you have to be good at computers. You have to learn. And really, anybody can be good at computers. It's just about building confidence. And so I want to talk a little bit about PebblePad. The reason that we use PebblePad, there's 2 or 3 reasons. One is that getting you to produce a web folio and what we call an asset, which is just a piece of work, by the end of the semester you'll actually think how well you've done. You'll have this really lovely web folio that describes the 4 sections that you've worked through, provides a summary of those. You'll have produced an asset or a piece of work. You've chosen one of those sections and you'll complete a piece of work about that. And then in the second assessment, you'll produce a case study, again in web folio format. The reason we get you to do that and use PebblePad is that it's particularly good and particularly easy at producing a web folio of work that will look fantastic and will make you feel so confident. When you first set it up, you might think, oh my goodness, I don't really know what I'm doing here and I feel a bit lost. But over the weeks, as you start playing with it, you'll realise that it is pretty intuitive, and it's just a matter of working through it slowly and systematically. And so what you need to do, you've set up your web folio, and so each of the sections, there's 4 of them. In the first week, I got you to set some goals for the subject, and I also got you to write about how you think the subject relates to your future career. Interestingly, one of the pieces of feedback that I got last semester, which I thought, pardon? And then I thought about it and realised that it probably wasn't made clear enough. And it was from a public health student who said, this course doesn't really relate to public health because public health would never work with individuals. And I thought, isn't that weird? Because even though I've got a nursing qualification, most of my work has been set in the primary health and environment. And of course we work with individuals. But rather than just sort of ignore that feedback, I thought, no, what I need to do is make it much more explicit and get you to think about how in your chosen career, chronic condition self-management and the techniques and the information that you will learn will relate to you. So hence, that's why I've got you to do that in week 1. So as you start to set up your web folio, you'll have 6 pages in total. Your first is what you've already done, if you've done it. If you haven't, please do it by the end of the week, because I want to be able to give you feedback on it. So you'll now be working onto your second page, which is a summary of the section, the first section that you're working through, which is this section, and all of the modules in this section. Okay, you need to listen really carefully to this, in that there are 4 sections. Section 1, which is what you'll work through in week 2 and week 3, has a number of modules. Your summary that you will put on the second page of your web folio is about that section. So you'll have 4 of them in total. Now, the students who do really well will be the students who work through and keep up and have their summary written at the end of week 3. It's really sensible that you do that for a couple of reasons. The main reason is we don't mark your web folio until the due date. Now, on the homepage of the LMS, you've got the assessment summary, and that lists your due dates. You need to go back to there really regularly and make yourself really familiar with that date of when your web folio summaries and when your asset is due. Now, what we do is we provide feedback as you go, and so we won't, if you finish that piece of work or get it pretty complete by the end of week 3, we won't actually mark that at that point. We'll give you feedback and say, okay, reasonable job, but have you thought about using other resources, because we can see you've used the resources that are in the subject. But as university students, you should be reading more widely. There are great resources out there. You should be actually using those. So that provides us the opportunity to give you good feedback as you go. The purpose of doing that, of course, is to make sure when you submit it, it will be a fantastic piece of work. So there's really no excuse for you to be doing badly if you read our feedback and you take that on board and you adjust it. And so even though you have submitted that web folio, once you put the next page in, as I said, we're not going to mark that. We'll give you feedback on that, and you can go back in and try and improve that. Now, the second thing is, and you need to listen really, really carefully to this, because students constantly get confused with this. PebblePad, what I got you to do was submit your web folio. That means you never have to submit that again. You work on that in your asset store in PebblePad. So you go into the asset area, you edit that, you put in the information, your summary for week 2 and week 3, we can see that. We can see that as you work on it. And so you don't need to load it up again. The great thing about that, which is why I like using PebblePad, is I can give you feedback as you go. And so don't ever think that it's got to be perfect. It needs to be good at the submission date, but we'll just lurk you occasionally and go in and say, yep, what you've done so far, great start, but it could be strengthened in this way. Now, most students who take advantage of that think it's fantastic, because there should never be an excuse that you're handing in work that's not what we expect, because we've told you your important bit is to take note of that feedback and to revise it if necessary. So you'll produce 1 page in week 2 to 3, and then when you move on to the next section, that's when your next summary will happen. The second part of that, or the second bit of part 1, is you need to produce an asset. Now, what I've done in the past is, if you talk to students who studied this subject last year, they needed to produce 4 assets, but they didn't do the summaries. And one of the things that I thought about as we were looking at them is that if you're producing 4 assets, it can get really repetitive. So what we did instead thought, no, let's actually get a summary from each of the sections, the 4 of them, and then you choose what you'd like to produce an asset. So just one of them. So those two things together is what forms the first part of your assessment. So with the asset that you need to produce, it's essentially a piece of work, and you will find examples on the homepage. And so what I'd encourage you to do is have a look at those examples and start thinking about the asset or the piece of work that you will produce. Now again, this is really, really important, that as you work through, you need to decide, you've only got to produce one asset, only one, and so you need to decide which section that relates to. What I'll do, as soon as I'm really confident that everyone's up and running, I'll release the following week, so you can get a sense early on of which particular section you might want to work up your asset for. So I'll do that really, really soon, within the next few days. So as you start to move through, the other thing that's really important, as we give you feedback, it's really important that you're conscious of where that feedback is. Because the other comment that we got as part of the student evaluation, again from 1 or 2 students, was that they only got numerical marks for the subject and didn't get any feedback. Of course that's incorrect, because we provide you a lot of feedback. We give you a detailed marking sheet with comments on that. Now I sort of thought, what? And then I realised, I bet they didn't know where to find the feedback. So even though that's written in the subject, what I've done is I brought a few really key documents onto the home page of the LMS. And so you will see there's a document there that says where to find my feedback. The other really important reason why I need you to set up your web folio, because all of those, the 60 odd that have been submitted, all have feedback on them, or if they've been submitted just this afternoon, I'll do that feedback shortly when I finish talking to you here. So really important that you get your web folio set up. You start this first section. As you're working through the section, you make notes ready for your summary. You start thinking about other resources, great resources on Google, government websites. You might want to do a literature search, but you know, once you graduate, no one's going to give you information of where to find things. You're going to have to learn those skills as well. So it's expected that you will go out and source information. You know, imagine if this was a project that you've been set at work to provide theory and evidence for chronic condition self-management, to present to a board or present to a group of people. And so really think where you would find that information realistically, broadly. So we need you to do that. We need you to make sure that you know how to get your feedback, so you don't say no one's giving me any feedback. So check the feedback document on the Learning Management System front page. Go in and have a look. The feedback I've given you at this point is pretty small. It's just hi and yep, you've done well, so well done. And I think if I give you, I'm going to finish in a minute because you don't want to listen to me rabbit on for too long, but I also think if I can give you one piece of advice in this subject, no, 2. One is that don't think in an online subject means that you're alone. You know, the reason why I'm here talking to you is that I am the lecturer in this subject. You know, I log on really regularly. I'm happy to help you in any way. You'll find me a pretty helpful person. And so you just need to yell out. Don't, don't spend time there alone thinking this is doing my head in. I feel really overwhelmed and therefore I'm going to leave it. Don't. Email me, use the discussion board, phone me up, talk to me, I'll help you. So that's the first bit of advice. The second bit of advice is that with an online subject, it's fantastic. You can work at a time that suits you, but it's incredibly important that you stay motivated. Because if you're going to a tute and a lecture, you know, you've got to turn up for class. But with online, you need to really work through it methodically. You need to figure out when you're going to do your work on the subject, and you need to make sure that you keep at it. The way the assessment's structured is to help you with that. Because, if you get your summary finished at the end of week 3 before all of your other assignments come in, and you've done a pretty good job of it, you've done a quarter of one of the pieces of assessment for this subject. So that's really important. The third bit of advice that I can give you about students who haven't perhaps done well in the past, it's because they haven't read. It's really, really vitally important, and I can't stress this enough. I sound as though I'm raving, but it's really important with an online subject that you clearly understand what you've got to do, and you read it and you understand it. I'm here again to answer questions, but if you work through particularly that week one material and be really clear and be really really strongly understand what it is you've got to do and work methodically, get the work done, stay on top of it, I can guarantee that you will pass. That's a guarantee. Okay, so I'm going to finish now. If I think about things I need to talk to you about, I'll periodically, I might make a short video clip just because I think it's good for us to get to know each other face to face. I also use the discussion board on the in the LMS site really regularly, so I'll post on that, and occasionally I might send you a sort of an urgent message about something, but I usually try and send you an email and let you know if I've done that. So look, I hope you enjoy getting started in week 2, and I'll look forward to talking to you again soon, but please call me if you need a hand. Just yell out, that's what I'm here for. Have a great week, and I'll catch up soon. Bye.